What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I am back again with another video. Now, as an NBA fan, you probably already know once the month of July comes to a conclusion, so does the NBA season. The finals has passed, and teams have already picked their draft pick, and for the most part, majority of free agents have already signed to the teams that they want to sign to. So I decided this is the perfect time to make these videos. I'm gonna make two videos, one breaking down the 4 winners of the offseason, and another video breaking down the 4 losers in the offseason. Now, of course, I may miss some teams in the process, so please let me know who you believe I missed in the comment section below, which I'm pretty sure y'all were going to do that anyway. And of course, as always, if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to be updated when the next video will be released, also subscribe to me. And as always, please follow me on Twitter at Legend of Winning. But without further ado, here are the 4 losers of the NBA offseason. Now, the Wizards are starting to be one of the franchises that I have to continue to sit back and ask myself, what in the hell are they doing? The Wizards took a massive L, just like everybody else, when it came to the Kevin Durant lottery, because they weren't able to sign him, mainly because the Washington Wizards wasn't even on the list of teams that Kevin Durant was looking at, which then magnifies their L's to another level. But on top of that, their L gets magnified even more once you start to think about what all they did to prepare themselves to sign Kevin Durant. They did everything from signing Scott Brooks, who was an ex-coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hell, they even signed Kevin Durant's high school coach. On top of that, they decided not to give Bradley Beal a contract extension in the middle of the season, which ended up hurting them more than helping them because Bradley Beal now has a max contract. And as we now know, that may not be the best thing because Bradley Beal may be suffering injuries throughout the rest of his career. Add that on top of the fact that Trey Burke is probably the best acquisition they made in the offseason, you can quite honestly say a team that didn't make the NBA playoffs last year took a step back even further. The Washington Wizards didn't have a first-round pick because they traded away with Markieff Morris, and when you look at their small forward and power forward positions, you can easily say they need an upgrade in that, which they again weren't able to get because in the offseason they were again preparing to sign Kevin Durant. With acquisitions such as Andrew Nicholson, Mahimi, Jason Smith, and Trey Burke, you can quite honestly say odds are the Washington Wizards making the playoffs again is very slim to none. Now, Orlando for the past few years has been that team that I've consistently stated if they ever get a good coach, like a reasonable coach, that they'll actually be a pretty solid team. And crazy enough, they stumbled upon Frank Vogel this year, so I thought that they will actually take a right step in the right direction. Unfortunately, I was incorrect, and they actually took a few steps back. First, let's start with the Victor Oladipo trade that ended up getting Serge Ibaka out of it, and to me, that is just ridiculous. One, not only because they misutilized Victor Oladipo with his time with Orlando, which is crazy because it's quite obvious that Victor Oladipo should be playing shooting guard, but in his rookie year they made him play point, and then in his second year they made him play shooting guard, and in his third year, which was just last year, they made him come off the bench, which I don't understand how anybody believes that a player can develop in the NBA when each and every year you have him do something different. That is mind-boggling to me. But 2, they gave up their number 11th pick in Sabonis just to get an expiring Serge Ibaka. The fact that they're putting all their eggs in Serge Ibaka's basket, a player that, I mean, at best can be a 20-10 player, but at the end of the day, Serge Ibaka could leave. Why risk it all on a Serge Ibaka that probably wants to go on a team that is a contender when you could have had players like Victor Oladipo and Sabonis? And another reason why this is crazy to me is because isn't Aaron Gordon a power forward? Isn't he supposed to be playing the power forward position? Nope, apparently he's probably going to play small forward, which then goes back to my Victor Oladipo point in stating that Orlando misutilized a lot of their young assets. Putting Aaron Gordon at small forward to me just makes no sense. Also, making acquisitions such as Jeff Green, Jody Meeks, CJ Wilcox, and DJ Augustine are all head scratchers. First, what's the point of getting Jeff Green? I thought that was the purpose of getting rid of Tobias Harris so you can give more minutes to younger players like Aaron Gordon and Mario Hezonja. If Jeff Green ends up getting more minutes than Mario, then again, there was no point of getting rid of Tobias if you were just going to turn around and sign another small forward anyway. And what's the point of picking up Jody Meeks, CJ Wilcox, and DJ Augustine? You already have Victor Oladipo, got rid of him, and then turned around signed 3 other guards. That literally makes no sense. But the cherry that is on top of this disastrous sundae is the Bismack Biyombo signing. Now I think Bismack is actually a pretty solid player, and I think he is a starter in this NBA, and so does the Orlando Magic with the amount of money that they signed to him. A 4-year, $72 million contract, roughly averaging around $18 million a year, is starter money. It's not backup money, it's not role player money, it's not even 6th man of the year money. That is legitimate starter money. But when you have somebody like Nikola Vucevic in the starting position, it's very, very confusing, and it's a head scratcher to say the least. If you were willing to move pieces like Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, I'm completely confused to why I haven't heard any trade rumors that include Vucevic. So even though I still believe they have a lot of good young assets on this team, a lot of them are going to be misutilized. So now you have Bismack Biyombo coming off the bench for Vucevic, no legitimate power forward besides Serge Ibaka, Aaron Gordon, who is a power forward playing small forward, Evan Fournier and Elfrid Payton. Yeah, that doesn't really sound like a team that is making the right step in the right direction. Hopefully Serge Ibaka stays on the team, but until that transpires, I highly doubt this team will make the playoffs, and that right there will be the 5th year in the row that it happens to the Orlando Magic. Now, Sacramento is consistently one of the worst ran organizations in this NBA, and to be completely honest with you, I could probably make a huge argument stating that they are the worst ran organization in this league. This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 10 years, and it doesn't seem like they're willing to change that motto anytime soon. Now, before we even get into the draft and who they actually picked up, because that in and of itself is another monster, let's talk about the free agency first. If you're a Sacramento native and you love Rajon Rondo, guess what? He's not going to be on the team next year because he decided to go to Chicago, which then bumped Darren Collison as your starting point guard, which in my opinion isn't that big of a deal, but then you had to turn around and find a backup. And the one and only Garrett Temple came to your rescue, a 30-year-old backup point guard who probably doesn't give you nowhere near the productivity that Darren Collison did coming off the bench last year. On top of that, adding pieces like Lamar Patterson, Matt Barnes, Anthony Tolliver to the team doesn't really seem like they had that much interest when it came to free agents. But they did actually pick up Aaron Aflalo, who is a solid shooting guard in this league, but for the price tag that they signed him to, it does seem like a tad bit much. A 2-year, $25 million contract seems like a lot for a player that probably is only going to give you around 10 to 15 points a game. And if you were willing to spend just a tad bit more money, you probably could have got somebody on the level of a Kent Bazemore or maybe even a Luol Deng. But if Aaron Aflalo was your best move when it came to free agency, then yeah, you probably failed at that as well. But then it makes it even worse when you look at what they did in the draft. Now, the Sacramento Kings had the number 8th pick, and what they decided to do was trade down, which I actually have no problem at all with, and I actually recommend more teams to do so, because if you want to pick a player that's still probably going to be available later on in the draft, then why not trade down? So the Sacramento Kings trade away their number 8th pick for the 13th and 28th pick in the draft to the Phoenix Suns, and with those 2 picks, they ended up picking not point guards, not power forwards, not shooting guards or small forwards. They ended up picking up 2 big men. With the 13th pick, they ended up picking up Papagiannis, and the 28th pick, they ended up picking up Skal, which is crazy to me because I would have thought just last year they picked it up a center in Willie Cauley-Stein. On top of that, their best player is DeMarcus Cousins, who also is a center, and they already have Kosta Koufis on the roster. So what's the point of picking up 2 centers, one of which is probably going to have to play power forward, which will probably be Skal, in the first round of the NBA draft? On top of that, they ended up trading Marco Bellinelli for this 22nd pick for Charlotte, and again, it's a pretty solid trade, but it all depends on who they pick up. And with the number 22 pick, they ended up picking up Malachi Richardson, who I actually don't mind at all, but when it comes to the Sacramento Kings, they have a pretty bad track record when it comes to drafting shooting guards. Everybody from Nick Stauskas to Ben McLemore really haven't panned out, and I don't really know where Malachi Richardson fits on this team, especially because they just picked up Aaron Aflalo in the free agency. So with a starting lineup that will probably consist of DeMarcus Cousins and Willie Cauley-Stein and more 7-footers than practically anybody else in the league besides the 76ers and the Milwaukee Bucks, I really don't know which direction the Sacramento Kings are heading into, and odds are they don't either. Now, it's quite obvious that losing Kevin Durant on this team is by far the biggest thing that can happen to any team. There's no way that they're going to be able to replace somebody who plays on an MVP level on a night-to-night basis. And regardless of how you feel about this team or Russell Westbrook, there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to bounce back from that loss. Now, even though they did make a pretty good acquisition, in my opinion, with the Victor Oladipo and Sabonis for Serge Ibaka, that's probably the only biggest upside for this team. Because to be completely honest with you, they're probably going to have to trade Russell Westbrook sooner than later. And the reason for this is because they don't need to lose Westbrook and Kevin Durant and don't get anything for them at all. So moving Westbrook is by far the best thing that they can do, but odds are nobody really wants Westbrook. Not because Westbrook isn't good enough or because, you know, he's too ball hungry or whatever, simply because he's on an expiring contract. So any team out there that probably puts an offer out on the table for Russell Westbrook will probably be underselling the Thunder simply because Russell Westbrook is a huge question mark. Why would I give up assets for a player that can probably just walk at the end of the season anyway? Which leaves OKC in a really bad situation because at least with Kevin Durant, they can play the what-if game, but with Russell Westbrook, they have to come to the conclusion that they have to trade him immediately. And so now this is a team that was literally one game away from going to the NBA Finals, a team that had players like Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, even James Harden, to a team that probably will never be able to bounce back from that ever again. I mean, honestly, when I go back and I look at the NBA, there are only a few teams in the history of the league that have had 2 of the top 10 players in the league on the exact same roster. Of course, you have Kobe and Shaq, Scottie and Mike, Magic and Kareem, but simply put, it just doesn't happen that often. And the fact that they lost Kevin Durant and got nothing for him and probably will get less value for Russell Westbrook, it puts OKC in a very, very tough position. So like I said earlier in the video, those are my 4 losers in the NBA offseason. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to leave any team that I left off this list, please leave it in the comment section below. And also subscribe so you can be updated when I upload the 4 winners for the offseason. And as always, follow me on Twitter, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.